Good evening. My name is Mark Nozell, and I am calling the Merrimack Village District meeting to order. It is now 7:02, and in a moment you'll see why that's an important thing to note. As I said, I'm tonight's moderator. We are following the typical meeting rules that we follow for meetings like this. Ask for your patience and politeness throughout the evening. I've been asked to point out where the fire exits are. I don't think there's going to be a huge crowd, but there are exits over on the left, my left, as well as the way we came in through the doors, take a left and exit. This evening we're voting on a number of warrant articles. The first three are related to electing the commissioners and the moderator, which is this role, and those are some of the commissioners. Voting is done at the back in those two boxes over there. Those will be secret ballots, of course, and I'll be keeping up the polls open for 2 hours. So at 9:02, I will be counting all the secret ballots and letting everyone know the results. Following there will be a number of more traditional warrant articles. I will read each one at a time, and then I'll look for a motion or second, typically from one of the commissioners. And then I'll have someone speak to the motion. We'll have any questions and answers. I ask that you come to the microphone here, flash your voter card, which you should have gotten when you checked in, state your name and your address. It is possible to make a motion to modify, to amend the articles if you want. If so, that also needs someone to make that motion, as well as a second. We'll have discussion, vote on that, and then continue on and vote on the warrant article as amended or not. Once that's completed, I will count the votes for each one of these. I'll ask you to hold them up, both yeas and nays, and give the result. The last article, number 8, which is in your article, is basically saying that now is the time to do any other sort of business and close the meeting. I will hold the meeting open for that 2-hour period to allow absentee and other people to vote. At that point, I'll go count the results for both the moderator and the commissioners, let everyone know, and then officially call the meeting to a close. There we go. So I'll read these first few articles. Article 1 is to choose 2 commissioners for a 3-year term of office. And you can find the people that are running on this. You can vote for them, vote for 2, no more, or you can write in if you so choose. Oh, I'm sorry. I should have introduced the folks up here on the stage with me. Going left away, we have Ken Ayers, John Lyon, Don Provencher, Wolf Unshawn, Aaron Clement, Ron Miner, and Kay Mayer. I'm sorry, I don't know your first name. Kristen, thank you. Returning back to reading the warrant articles. Warrant article number 2. Number 2 is to choose 1 commissioner to fill 2 years of a 3-year term of office. And if you notice here, there is differences. You can choose for the 3 or the 2. Again, you can choose the woman who's running, or you could write in somebody else. Article 3 is to choose 1 moderator for a 2-year term of office. And again, fill it out on the green form and vote your conscience. That part over. Let's move on to the more interesting ones. Article 4. To see if Merrimack Village District will vote and raise and appropriate the sum of $6,281,356 for general municipal operations for the 2024-2025 fiscal year, with said sum to come from water-related charges. This article does not include appropriations contained in special or individual articles addressed separately. The result is simply majority vote, and it is recommended by the Board of Commissioners 4-0-0. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Great.
Yeah, so this is the operating budget warrant article. This article funds the operation of the district for the year beginning July 1st, 2024 and ending June 30th, 2025 for all departments, including administration, distribution, treatment, debt service, and insurance/benefits.
Would anyone like to ask any questions, etc.? You're free to walk up to the mic, please. Hearing none, at this point, let's move on to the voting phase. If you are in favor of this, please take your blue card and raise it up and let me take a look at it. And opposed. The motion carries. Moving on to Article 5. Shall the Merrimack Village District vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $99,943 under provisions of RSA 35:1, Sections 1 and 2, to add to the district's System Development Capital Reserve Fund for the future system expansion and improvement of the existing system. This sum shall come from the unassigned fund balance. These are the system development charges collected during 2022 to 20.
Seconded.
Thank you.
The MVD's Board of Commissions adopted a System Development Charge, SDC, on August 19th, 2008. This charge is applied to new customers and those existing customers who increase their water service demand beyond 20% of their current or prior use. The charge could be best described as a buy-in fee to achieve equal equity position with existing customers. This one-time payment will cover their share of the value of existing infrastructure. Fire service entrances are not subject to the SDC. The System Development Charge use of funds. Policy 08-02-B was approved by the Board of Commissioners on 10/27/2008.
If there are any questions or comments, the microphone is open. Seeing none, let's move on to the voting phase. All those in favor of the motion, please hold up your blue card. Thank you very much. All those opposed? Thank you. The motion has passed. Moving on to Article 6. Shall the Merrimack Village District vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $800,000 under provisions of RSA 35:1, Sections 1 and 2, to add to the district's Equipment and Facilities Capital Reserve Fund for the associated costs of existing storage, transmission, and production of water. This sum shall come from the unassigned fund balance. Again, majority vote is required. recommended by the Board of Commissioners 400. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Seconded.
Great.
The purpose of this article is to use a portion of the revenue surplus to be set aside for future use in the district's Equipment and Facilities Capital Reserve Fund, should an emergency arise in future years for which there was no appropriation, or should there be the need for an unforeseen special piece of machinery in a pump station, for example. The Board of Commissioners would have these funds available for such purposes. The fund was established by the March 26, 1996 annual meeting.
Thank you.
Hi, Tom Koenig, 1 Danforth Road. You're looking like you're spending almost $1 million out of unreserved funds. Are we overcharging our fees or something that we have that much unassigned, unreserved fund balance? Where are we getting all that extra money from that you can be putting into these funds without raising rates?
We used to actually put this type of money into our infrastructure or this capital reserve. These amounts have been factored into the rates that was just increased in October for these two amounts, the 800,000 and also the next article. And it's
Okay.
basically for safety going forward with our system.
All right, how much is in the fund right now?
In that, excuse me, particular fund right now, there's $3.1 million.
3.1 million, and you want to add 800,000.
With the upcoming projects we have intended with finding new sources with our growing community, and also with some other projects that we have with better upgrading with the treatment plants, and also with anything that comes along with the federal government and their guidelines. There's money set aside for things like that.
Okay, but that's half your annual budget that you've got reserved for things. That it seems like a lot of money. Thank you.
One Woods, 2 Arbor Street, Merrimack, New Hampshire.
Thank you.
Through several years of working with the MVD, I'm aware of the need to repair for major emergencies, but I am curious as to what the board sees arising that would justify this kind of expenditure or this kind of push into the emergency funds.
Someone address that, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to make the comment that we have rate studies done every so often by Underwood engineers. You're familiar with them. And this $800,000 had been recommended by them years ago, and it's still recommended by them. So we felt it prudent to go along with their recommendation to make sure that we have enough funds available for any major projects that come down the line. And having those funds available would help defer interest payments on bonds and things like that. So that was the recommendation that they had made in the capital improvement plan years ago. And so we decided to go ahead and honor that recommendation from Underwood.
So beyond an emergency, is there an anticipation of the need to spend $800,000?
So one of the reasons why I voted for this as one of the commissions that support this article is we have added, as you know, multiple buildings to the district in the last 3-4 years, 5 years only, and very large infrastructure systems for the PFAS filtration, iron manganese filtration, and so on. And these are additional structures that can suffer, storm damage, unforeseen damages by a truck driver that doesn't, during GAC deliveries or what, granulated activated carbon deliveries, whatnot. And if we do need to respond to this short notice, it is going to be helpful to support that infrastructure.
So my sojourn and age has not kept up with your anticipated needs. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chris Christensen, trustee of trust funds. I want to support this article and point out that the trustees of trust funds receive the monies and hold it on behalf of the MVD. The MVD, more than the town and more than the school, makes excellent use of capital reserve funds because they do put in enough that they don't have to replenish every time they spend something, but they have enough in reserve to make some major expenditures. One of those expenditures sometimes will be if they're expanding systems, which we're talking about now, may require a large $600,000, $700,000 down payment and matching funds for a $2 million project. Having that kind of money on hand and earning 4.5% on it right now is a pretty good deal. And yes, it seems like a lot of money because the other boards that we're watching scrimp and try and niggle stuff around, and they're unprepared. The MVD is prepared for this kind of stuff, and I support the motion.
Thank you. Anyone care to comment or not? We're good.
I think we should mention the capital reserve, capital improvement fund.
So I think we'll move on and do a vote on this one here. Article number 6. All those that are in favor of the motion, please raise your blue cards. All those opposed? Thank you. The motion has passed. Moving on to Article 7. Shall the Merrimack Village District vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $200,000 under provisions of RSA 35:1-C to add to the district's purchase of water and/or operations and maintenance of GAC treatment facilities. Non-capital reserve fund for associated costs will purchase of and/or treatment of water. This sum shall come from unassigned fund balances. A majority vote is required, and this is recommended by the Board of Commissioners 4-0-0. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Aaron. Second?
Second.
John?
The purpose of this article is to use a portion of the reserve surplus to be set aside for future use in the district's purchase of water and/or the operation and maintenance of the GAC treatment facilities non-capital reserve fund. Should an emergency arise in future years for which there are no appropriation, or should there be a need for an unforeseen additional water purchase or treatment cost, for example, the Board of Commissioners would have these funds available for such purpose. The fund was established by warrant Article 6 at the March 2021 annual meeting.
Thank you.
Good evening. Philly Rothaus, 14 Kittredge Lane. And I had just two questions, I guess. I think it was within the past couple of years, didn't we make an arrangement with Pennachuck at $300,000 a year for 3 years to purchase water if necessary? So if this is, I'm wondering why this is used for the purchase of water and as well on the maintenance of the activated charcoal treatment facilities, the maintenance, wouldn't that be a budget item where we would plan that regularly as opposed to requiring the use of an unreserved fund surplus? So just wondering about that.
A response?
One of the main purposes of this fund is for unforeseen, particularly as all three of our new pretreatment plants are been online as of this year, collectively all three of them. So as we learn how often to change the GAC and so forth, will have been done with the budget prior. So this kind of covers us if we need an emergency change of GAC, again, based on guidelines for the treatment. It also, we're building up the last few years for the 4 and 5 treatment plants. We were actually reimbursed by St. Cobain. This fiscal year will be the very last of those payments. So this, again, will be a fund so that we can somewhat offset some of the budget going forward that we would be missing from that settlement.
I would like to maybe add briefly, so since you brought up the maintenance being a budget item, the maintenance of these filtration systems is most definitely a budget item. What we can't foresee, obviously, is the weather next or this in the incoming year, as far as rainfall and snowfall and drought situations. So this gives us the ability to counter, if needed, some of the consumption by, as you mentioned, buying water from Pennachuck under the wholesale agreement. But since that's an unknown, we wanted to put that into a reserve and not into the budget at this time.
Good evening, Nancy Murphy, 20 Brenda Lane. Thank you. I just wanted to follow up on the comment you made around the GAC system and the cost of filtration. I couldn't remember if it was this year or last year that the 5-year operating and maintenance cost that had been agreed to with the consent decree was up. Do you have a sense yet of what the difference in cost, what we will be taking over when that O&M costs are no longer covered by the agreement with St. Cobain? It's like the annual cost, like ballpark,
Roughly about 150,000
per year.
per year.
Thank you. I think that's important for community members to recognize and to, when we're advocating for PFAS help in this state, this is really important that the state recognizes the burden of a situation like this to a community, that we will in perpetuity be paying that extra $150,000 as victims of this pollution. So thank you.
We need to add to this, as the public knows, there's pending litigation against several polluters in town that the MVD initiated. And that number is not something that, that we can vouch for here right this second, right? And the numbers are obviously public, the budget is public, the P&L of the district is public information, but this number is not something that anybody should be going by right this second as a firm number. Thank you.
Paul McCallie, 17 Mile Point Road. Just a couple questions. How much is in your unreserved fund balance right now?
I think the last end of February was about 8 million.
You're asking to use about roughly 1.3 million of that, what, 8 million to go into these capital reserve funds?
Correct.
How much is in this water capital reserve fund?
364,000.
Okay, so with this, will be about a 500,000 is what you're looking at. All right. So with $8 million on a $6 million budget, you have 120% override basically in unreserved fund balance. Because if you budget 6 million and you got 8 million in it, it's 100 and what, 110, 120% of your budget. Roughly. I'm just doing quick numbers. How much do you have in revenue coming in this year? Over appropriations, so to speak. Is your revenue number strong, weak?
Our revenue is strong, and that's mostly due to the facts of the weather. We have not needed as much chemicals for treatment due to the fact that the groundwater is at a high level. So chemicals, if you remember from last year, was the most significant increase.
Chemicals are going up all over the place, I understand that. Okay. So I guess what I'm trying to get at is that for most municipalities and school districts, the unreserved fund balance is supposed to be around 20% of budget, or at least 1 year, if you, in your case, 1 year of operating expense. It just seems that you have a large fund balance that maybe you might want to start thinking about either moving it out or giving it back to the ratepayers and a reduction in the rate. Because I know we did get some help with some of those $17 million that we took out in loans. We got some free money, so to speak, from ARPA and the state resolving fund and things of that sort. So, and I know we were budgeting for the 17 million. So it's just something for the board to think about next year when they're looking at doing a rate increase or stabilization. Just something to think about.
No more questions, so let's move on to voting for Article 7. All those who are in favor, please raise your blue cards. Thank you. And those opposed? Thank you. The motion has passed. Now moving on to Article 8, a nice and simple one. This article is to transact any other business and to close the meeting. This is a new requirement from the board. This is standard language. When we vote on this, if it passes, then I will officially close the business part of the meeting, and we will need to keep open the voting until 9:02. At that point, myself and the helper will count the results and announce this from here, and then I'll gavel the meeting officially closed. Does anyone have a motion? Ken? Thank you.
Seconded.
Thanks. Any discussion? The motion is to transact any other business and then to close the meeting. So if there's any other business,
If I'm not mistaken, I think that was a directive from the Department of Revenue Administration. So if you have questions, maybe you can ask them, because I'm not really sure why we have to do this either.
well, let's move on to Article 8. All those in favor of the article? All those opposed?
Keep it going.
Thank you. The motion has passed. So at this point, basically, please go to the back and vote for the various commissioners and moderator. And then I shall wait here until 9:02 when I shall count the votes. Okay, it's now 9:12. The votes have been counted for Articles 1, 2, and 3, and here are the results. Wolf Anchon got 25 votes. Donald Provencher got 27 votes. They are both commissioners for a 3-year term. There were no write-in votes. For the commissioner, the 2-year term, voting for 1, Aaron Clement got 28 votes. Write-ins, none. Congratulations, Star. And then moderator, a 2-year term, voting for 1, Mark Nozell got 29 votes. No write-in votes. Congratulations to me. And there you go. They're the results. And the meeting I call closed.